So, welcome everyone to this week's Micro Minute Radio Show. My name is Alan, and today we're going to be discussing 10 days until the NAP ends. Is your micro ready? There's a lot going on here in terms of what is happening on the world scale, and we talked a little bit about uh, why this next global is going to be so impactful on lower tiered alliances like Micros. Basically, because Rose isn't um, able to defend their protectorates are going to get pulled into the war, and from then it's just going to be a slow spiral effect down to, okay, great, now we have this huge war. What is going to happen here? Um, so realistically, there's kind of five phases that we should really discuss here, which is what what is preparedness for your global. Um, your global might be different than everyone else's global. What this basically means is assuming that there's no issue for your alliance, then you can technically sit out of the global. If you are pulled into the global, you want to make sure you're ready for that as well. So if you are able to escape this global unscathed, no one fires a shot, you're good to go, everything's okay, you still need to prepare for it even 10 days out. The number one thing, and I think Rohirrim can attest to this even more, the number one thing that you need to do is stockpile wartime resources. Right now, the market is kind of all over the place as stuff is getting bought out for the mass production of resources. However, as soon as the global hits, we are going to see an increase of everything from food, uranium, aluminum, gasoline, munitions, and steel. And what's interesting enough is we also tend to see an increase in the cost of credits as well. So 10 days out, now's the time to buy resources, especially food. Food right now has been hovering around what 220 to 225 price per unit right now. Um, the last global 16, food reached an all-time high of 177 price per unit, I want to say. Um, so if you buy food now at 120, let's say you buy, I don't know, 100,000 food. It's, relatively, that's not too much. Basically, you're only spending about 100, or actually, it's 12.5 mil. You'd be able to sell that during a global and make maybe 4 or 5 mil profit. So yeah, so the highest price for food that I have ever seen was during NPO, in which food reached 326 price per unit. Now, once again, that is not going to happen this war because, you know, it's not going to be an 8 month long war. But it is going to increase, and food is usually a safe bet for any and all investors. Another thing is gasoline. Gasoline always goes up during a global regardless because airplanes, ships, and tanks all require heavy amounts of gasoline. Munitions is one of those things where it can go up, it maybe doesn't go up. It's all dependent on whether or not all participants, all blocks really get their hands dirty. If not, munitions is actually one of the few resources that might only fluctuate about 100 and 200 over the course of the war. Aluminum usually goes up, and that can increase by about 500 to 600. But steel right now, because of the impact of tanks, will skyrocket dramatically. Um, Steel right now as a resource is, if we go to trade real quick. So steel is currently being bought for 4,123 right now. At over 4,000, steel is currently being sold at 4,222. That's insane. Steel is only going to increase and it might reach 5K. It might reach 5K, which is disgusting. I'm very happy that I bought steel a week ago at 3.6 and not at 4.2. That's just gross. There's no reason um, for it to ever be like that. Credits though, credits are the interesting thing. If we want to go and look at credits real quick, credits are being sold for about 24 million right now, and they're being bought for 21.5. This is a great time to sneak in, buy credits for about 22, resell at the end of the month for about 27, 26. And you make basically 4 or 5 mil a credit. By that way, if you buy the full 10 credits, you're essentially making anywhere from 40 to 50 mil minimum for that month. So now you've heard, all right, we are able to survive unscathed, nothing happened, we're good to go. Now let's talk about, is your micro ready to actually fight a war? The current meta for the game has, I mean, even though there's been multiple game changes, mechanic changes, it has always been planes go burr. That's it. Planes have always been the behemoth of war. Tanks, while they weren't useful, I want to say, right before last update, they've slightly become useful. The only problem is, for tanks to be useful in removing planes, you need about 5 to 7.5k tanks. Here's the thing. If you're able to get a single, and I mean a single, airstrike immense triumph, those 5 to 7,500 tanks get reduced in half. That's why tanks will never be the superior force. Even at 10,000, if I have 10,000 tanks, somebody airstrikes me, is able to destroy 30 ships or something. Not only have they destroyed 30 ships, but they've also reduced my tank power from 10,000 down to 5,000. Essentially, destroying 5,000 tanks in the process. So you have to be careful, because while tanks might have a nice superior edge in the ground battles, having too many tanks will literally be your doom. At 10,000 tanks, in order to build all of that, is going to require 5,000 steel. Yeah, so that's the thing. In order to basically get the equivalent of having 5,000 tanks, you need to send all 10,000 tanks. The meta at this point is airstrike, target ships, blockade. That's it. Once the blockade is in place, if you have to send 10,000 tanks, that is going to eat up gasoline super quick. If you are going to have to use your planes, you are going to use up gasoline super quick. Remember, we're not in the age right now where people are able to stockpile gasoline to 10,000. People aren't able to have war chests of 25K munitions. This is huge because as soon as you can blockade early, you're essentially just sitting on them. Blockading those that can't produce gasoline is essentially a free win. Able to take out a opponent early on allows you to focus on other opponents that your allies are having more trouble with. The most interesting thing is once you're able to sit on them, the way the beige cycling works is if I blockade early on and I let the war expire, like not expire, but I let the war draw out, my other two teammates can beige the opponent. Once that happens, it will be 2 turns left until my war expires, and another 2 people can go and sit on him. So then, guess what? Another blockade comes in. I finish up my war, send him to beige cycle. He's still blockaded. He cannot rebuild. And at that point, and that's what they did with TKR. They basically just said, okay, we're going to just over and over and over and over. We're going to cycle you. That's how you can win a war, especially against opponents with higher city counts. So why is this important? As a micro, you're going to have people between cities, I hope not as low as 2, but you're going to have people from cities 3 to 10. You can win a war against city 14 and 15s if you use this method. So what essentially happens is you have what's called the Armada. The Armada is somebody that runs the full, I think right now the Armada build is 3053. 3 barracks, no factories, 5 hangars, 3 shipyards. What this does is it keeps your military score low enough so that you can't get down declared by anyone too tanky. But what it also means is you have the maximum amount of ships. So let's say at City 6, right? Anyone know how many ships maximum can you have per city? Anyone know? Each shipyard allows 5 ships, 15. At City 6, that's 90 ships. 90. There aren't even City 10s with 90 ships. So all of a sudden, you're in this strange position where a City 6 is able to beige cycle City 10s. All right, let's look at it this way. Let's say I'm a City 10 and I have this Armada build. At City 10, that's 150 ships. At 150 ships, you're able to beige cycle City 14s, City 15s. I would go so far as to say you could do 16 or 17s. Now, it's really going to boil down to, can your protectorate lower their air force enough? That's really where it's going to kick in. Because if you say, all right, we have city 16s, we have city 10s, our protectorate has, 16, 17, 18s. As soon as your protectorate starts bombing the hell out of those city 16s, you have to be ready because those city 16s are going to lose infra, they're going to use military, and they're going to wait until their first beige cycle or begins, I should say, to declare on you. So you need to be ready to take the time, separate yourself, and say, okay, here's our plan for when our protectorate starts lowering targets into our field. Air superiority, blockade. When I don't want this to be a me show. I'd rather it be general. So I'm trying to think of another example. Um, okay, KT, Knights Templar. When KT fought Oasis, they basically said, listen, we have super low infra levels right now, high military levels. We want to make sure that not only can we cause a shit ton of damage, but we can keep causing that damage over and over and over again. So what did they do? Can anyone tell me KT's battle plans against Oasis? Other than nukes. So there we go. KT was just slapping around the small guys, but it was navals. That was the big thing. If I can't do anything in a war, I'm completely useless. When Okay, I'm gonna have to go back to this. When we got during Allenfall, I was in a 9v1 essentially. I had 6 offensive wars because of pirate economy and 3 defensive wars. Through airstrike, blockade, I was able to win all 9 wars. All of them. In the time of a dogpile, if you are able to win all 9 of your wars, that it's either complete incompetence from the other side or you're doing something incredibly well. Making sure that the blockades are in place and choking your opponent out makes it incredibly easy for your lower guys to get in on it. Because here's the thing. Let's say, oh, this city 16 we were able to kind of keep in control by our city 10s. Now, what is our city 12s and 13s able to do? They're able to fight the other 12s and 13s that have full militaries. So that's what you want. You want to take somebody that's a higher city level than you, drag them down, and then once you drag them down, you can say, all right, this is perfect. Let's now hold them there with our lower cities. During beige, you will encounter people trying to stockpile cash and resources in order to do double buys because beige obviously gives more. You get an extra 500,000 now at turn change. Used to be 100,000. I don't know why they changed that. But now on top, okay, so now you've done your airstrikes, got your blockades in place. Now you need to double check. You need to say, okay, can this person be somebody that we can truly 100% choke out? So here's where your spies come in. Now, spies do not increase your nation score. Um, there was a poll, I want to say back in 2017, where everyone said we should do this, but it ultimately got shut down because by adding spies to your nation score, people would be able to kind of do the math and say, okay, this is how many spies they have. So uh, bots can technically already find out, but realistically, if you don't have the bots in place, then it's, there's so much stuff in regards to the game um, that really, I don't know, not reduce the playability of it, but what it reduces the challenge of it. It reduces the unknown. And when you have bots that kind of give everything at your fingertips, not all calculations will be correct. There may be a few spies more or less. Okay. So that's the thing. Spies are not supposed to be accessed by the game. Only people within your alliance are able to see your spies. So when you have stuff like that, it's kind of like, what's the point? Yes, there's an advantage to it, but how much of an advantage becomes too much of an advantage. Um, so reverse engineering formulas. Yeah, simple. Your all your common micro has to do is just reverse engineer a formula. This isn't like, for those that have been playing the game for 3 or 4 years, not necessarily that big of a deal. For those micros that have only been in the game for 50 or 100 days, that's huge. Hey. um, so once you do your spy check and you're able to say, okay, here's the resources that they have, then you can say, all right, done. And here is the basically power move that'll allow you to say, all right, we can hold this person in place, and now we just kind of push forward. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and I'm going to have to use Black Skies as an example here. To protect yourself in the event of an outstanding issue, Black Skies had to be added to the NAP because Black Skies was removed as a protectorate during the middle of the global. At that point in time, Error 404 had told Black Skies to mobilize. Black Skies did mobilize, and they were attacked by the Enterprise and Eclipse. Obviously, being pulled into the global, Black Skies sent counters, Black Skies started attacking, and so on and so forth. Basic global stuff. However, Black Skies wasn't able to get a seat at the peace table because they're just, Black Skies did not make a ROH, or a return of hostilities, because realistically there was no need to. There's no need for a protectorate to make an ROH on the forums. That's kind of silly. An independent party, though, making an ROH, though, would have been really important. Okay, so there were 12 people at the peace conference, but those 12 people were able to represent all parties, right? Leaders of spheres. there's an unknown sphere that people forget about, and it's none. And I know people take that as a joke sometimes, but none sphere is left out of wars all the time. All the time. And no, I'm not talking about like ARG being part of none sphere. I'm talking about alliances that get pulled into globals, but then don't have a way to find peace. So Black Skies, when they were kicked out of Hedge, became part of Nunsphere. Nobody was representing Black Skies at the peace table. I think it was TLE at one point that basically said, listen, it's not fair that Black Skies should be hanging out on their own. We need to, you know, basically come in and say, all right, here's the deal. We're going to add these people to the NAP. If TLE hadn't done that, technically, Black Skies would have still been at war with all of Quack. The unfortunate thing, oh my gosh. Sorry, they're doing commands in the radio discussion to try and figure out what the size of people without who aren't in an alliance are, which really isn't Nunsphere. That's just inactives and people that don't have an alliance. Nunsphere really is alliances that aren't tied to anyone. So let's say United Federations of Canerica, currently part of Nunsphere. You got the Monarchy, currently tied to. Actually, no. I think the Monarchy saved themselves and they're tied to Oasis right now. Let's take a look at some alliances that are currently part of Nunsphere. Um, European Union was Nunsphere, but now they're part of Rosecam. United Nations of Canerica, they're part of Nunsphere. Phoenix Legion, currently a part of Nunsphere. Special Antarctic Alliance was part of Nunsphere. They're not anymore. They're under Amar right now. Um, so now you have to say who's going to represent those alliances at the peace table. And realistically, no one does. Because only those that are working on your sphere at peace conferences, you're going to be working on your sphere. There's not going to be this. Now, wait a second. What about this alliance with 13 people in it that Oceania hit during the global? We want peace for them too. There's nobody does that. So, my advice, and this is going to be really risky advice, so take this as Alan from Micro Minute and not Alan as Black Skies. Get yourself a protectorate for the global. After the global, you can go ahead and cancel it. But just get a prot for the global. Already people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Here's the thing. If you are in a low tier alliance, all of a sudden you aren't being attacked. How many wars has Special Antarctic Alliance been in? How many wars? We want to go to defensive because everything else is them hitting other people. 5. They've been in 5 defensive wars. 2 of them were truced and 1 expired. So technically only 2 wars in about a month. Phoenix Legion, how many wars have they been in? Out of 97 wars, oh geez, Aurora and Arsenal beat the shit out of them. Holy God, Arsenal! What's going on here? Well, that's rough. Being part of Nunsphere, getting what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 wars by Arsenal? Oof. That's rough. Arsenal now has merged, yes. But they weren't merged a little before. So with finding a protectorate for the global, you're basically giving yourself a voice for the global. Now it doesn't mean you have to join, because that's the thing. If you attempt to get a protectorate and then you actively seek to make yourself a part of the global, that's not how it works. You know, if you want to try and stay out of the global, try and pick up a protectorate for the global. And then you can go back to being kind of this weird stage. And that's the thing. It's so easy to just say, well, that's super easy. Um, just just always have a protectorate. The thing is, people don't want that. And it's hard just to say, oh, well, if you don't want it, then get curb stomped. At least for me, it is. Obviously, for most people, especially for those that have been playing for, you know, 2, 3 years and are city 20 plus, it's very easy to say, oh, you don't have a protectorate, you get stomped, it's your own fault. It's not really their fault. It's how they want to play, and so it's a consequence of their actions, but it's not their fault. The real issue is, okay, we need to try and find something, because here's the thing. If I'm in the middle of a global and I can't do anything against my opponent, why would I go and hit another alliance that has nothing to do with the global? What do you think, guys? If I am, let's say, a city 7, and I'm just like, yo, I don't want to attack these people at city 7, city 6. That's, they might be the enemy here, but I want to attack this other random alliance that has nothing to do with what's going on. Is that fair? Is basically war dodging, essentially, and saying, I'm not going to fight this war, guys. I'm going to do my own thing. Is that fair? Pumir says, if you're in a global, you should be focusing on that. And that's the thing. You should be focusing on that. So if you want to say, you know what, not going to do it, we don't want to be a part of this global, but all of a sudden, some Appalachian bush boy decides to come out of the woodwork from Arsenal and slot you guys, that's nothing about that says this is fair, because Arsenal might basically be saying, listen, we have all these people. We don't want them to lose their infra, their newly built stuff. We don't want them to waste their military. So we'll just have them raid other people in the middle of a global. To me, that's worse than just leaving your alliance. Because not only does it say, okay, I understand that the alliance as a whole needs to do this, however, I'm not going to do that. You're basically saying, I'm better than the alliance that I'm a part of, and I'm going to do my own thing. At that point, you should kick that person from your alliance. Now, granted, if they're like City 3, City 4, guess what? not a whole lot of targets. Let them do what they want to do. At City 7, though, regardless, you're going to have targets. And you should be focusing on those targets and not on hitting random alliances that have nothing to do with the current situation. That's, you know, there's a, you know what really grinds my gears? People that are involved in a global war and drag other people in because of their due incompetence. Thanks, America. Thanks. Jesus. No thanks. I'm good. Um, the the worst thing is not having a say during a global. Because global ends, everyone's kind of going back to their own thing. What's the first thing that people want to do get out, like getting out of a global? What's the first thing that people want to do? Rebuild. What's the fastest way for a City 7 to rebuild? What's the fastest way? Raid. The fastest way for a City 7 to rebuild after a global is to raid. I'm currently City 7 right now. Every raid that I do, I make about 7.5 mil. At 6 full raids, with raids at, I can get 6 raids done every 2 days. You know, we're looking at 45 mil every 2 days. That is serious rebuild. That's the thing though. At City 7, no City 7's chilling at 800 infra. Let's be honest. No City 7, unless you're an ARG, is saying 800 infra. That's what I want to be at. City 7 is probably chilling at about 1500 infra. If not 15, yeah, 1500 infra. That's usually what City 7s are chilling at. I'm not misguided. We can pull up an alliance. We can look at their City 7s, and it'll show 1500 infra. We can do it right now. Who wants to pick the Mortals? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the Mortals real quick. Okay, so here's a City 7. 800 infra. Here's another City 7. Okay, here's a City 5 in the Mortals with 2k infra. Here's a City 5 with 2k infra. Here. Ready for this? Here. City 5, 153 days old, 2k infra. If I'm a City 5 and I lose my 2k infra, you know damn well I'm going to have to raid for that back. That's rebuild. Welcome to the micros. No. Putmir, that's the thing. Any sensible person would be like, listen, you built a 2k infra, you just lost it after a global. They don't, though. They don't. They don't. They don't. Let's go through some more of the Mortals. I'm ready to do this. Here we go. Here's another City 5. Guess what? 2k infra. I'll post this one to you guys. There we go. That's another City 5 with 2k infra. And Dracodare, it's not you found the one dude with 2K. There are thousands of people that build to 2K infra before City 15, before City 10. Okay, okay. Capable alliances don't build. Okay, all right. You know what? Let's go. The Knights Radiant. Let's go ahead and look at them real quick. Let's go to members. Oh, I gotta flip through a couple pages here, guys. They got like 185, so we'll go 50 rows starting at 150. Okay. Here we go. So here's a City 5. This City 5 is sitting at 1.8K infra. Okay, let's do another. Okay, here's a City 7 Fragos at 1.7K infra. Here's a City 6. And this City 6 is sitting at, you guessed it, 1.8K infra. This is not just a, oh, yeah, you can only, here you are finding the one City 5 with 2K infra. Hundreds, if not thousands of people are doing this. It's not even a, oh yeah, only, oh yeah, you're really finding the really shitty micros that do this. Oh, they don't do this in the competent ones. Here's TKR, 78 days old. You might be able to say our alliance doesn't do that. That's fine. You know, you can say that's fine, my alliance doesn't do that, but you can't say, oh, nobody does this. So looking at all of these nations with super high infra levels, how did they get them? How did they build all the way up there? Let's take a look. I'm going to go back to the exact same nations that I sent. This City 5, the very first one I sent, won 15 wars, got 47 mil in the wars. You're probably saying, okay, so what? Nothing. Look at bank activity. He got a 15 mil grant about a week and a half ago for Propaganda Bureau. That's it. They're not, the alliance themselves is not building to, they're not saying, okay, at City 5, here you go, 2K infra, you're good to go. These are unique people that either A, aren't getting the guidance that they need, or B, are just saying, oh, I can raid for that cash, so I'm just going to build my infra up. Instead of having that alliance say, listen, you should really focus on building cities rather than building infra. Let's go to another one I posted. Crimson Eternal. I haven't done that one yet. Crimson Eternal. 23 wars won. 63 million looted. You know, at this, okay, Putmir, this is bad. A guy rebuilt infra in TCW during Global War 16, and I made him sell it. First of all, that's not how that works. Somebody has built up their infra during a global using their own funds, not taking out a grant, because you yourself, as part of the alliance, can say, no, we're not going to hand out grants for infra because we're in the middle of a fucking global. And somebody all of a sudden says, okay, that's fine, I'm just going to rebuild it on my own. Guess what? It's their cash. They, as a player, they are free to do whatever they want with their funds. They are 100% free to do whatever they want. Now, here's the thing. If they lose it because all of a sudden they get nuked, no, you can't come to us for a grant for infra. We told you not to rebuild infra. You've lost all of your money. You cannot get a grant for infra for another 2 weeks. Sorry. You're going to have to rebuild it because you did not listen to us. A 100 taxes is not fun. 100 taxes gives the player no space to do anything they want. Nothing. It's just, it's so mind-boggling. You're in a position to say this is right, this is wrong. And for ugh. AAs like Carthago are cool with it, and MPO is poggers with it when they were around. During war, there are 3 rules that everyone follows. Don't rebuild your infrastructure. Don't peace out your wars until the end when something has been signed. Never. If you say, hey, X, Y, and Z, I need you to declare on these 3 targets, they declare on those 3 targets, and they peace them out, you need to remove that person from the alliance. Because that's also war dodging. If you have somebody that says, hey, I'm going to declare on 1, 2, and 3 targets, and then pieces those out, guess what? That's war slotting for the enemy. Don't do that. The final rule about all warfare that everyone follows is do not engage with the enemy. Do not go into their discords. Do not harass them. Do not, don't do anything like that. I'm not saying don't have open conversations, because if you have friends in another alliance, that's fine. But don't antagonize them. Don't go into the Discord and say, hey, you're getting fucked in the ass. Whoa, wait a second. So the best part of war is messing around with your friends that are in other alliances. That's fine. That's great. But don't, why would you go into another alliance chat just to antagonize them? There's no reasoning for that. It's not difficult to enjoy war. I enjoy raiding, but I enjoy war more because of the coordination and because of the results, I guess. So, does anyone have any questions or comments about what I've said so far? Because I'm going to get into the last bit otherwise. No questions, no comments? Okay. So the last thing is your micro has successfully either avoided war altogether or fought in the global and was able to get out without doing a disband. The thing to do now is actually not to rebuild. As a micro, as a major alliance, yes, as soon as the war is over, you go into rebuild mode. Everyone changes builds, everyone does stuff. As a micro, don't rebuild. And I need to reiterate that and to enforce that. Rebuilding for a micro is very expensive. Don't do that. It's much better to say, listen, we have these cities. There's the only reason you would rebuild infra in a city is if for some reason it destroyed one of your power sources. So let's say an attack destroyed your nuclear power plant. You're going to want to rebuild that. Instead, use any cash coming in to rebuild and build more cities. And I let me go back. Not to rebuild cities, but to build more cities. As you keep going, and as you start getting into city 10 and up, every city past that is going to give you more income, regardless. Anything before city 10 basically works on the new player bonus, and so there's no reason to take a city 6 and say don't rebuild your infra, build more cities, because it's still going to be the same amount of cash that you're going to be making until city 10. The most important thing when you are ready to move forward after a global is to chill and relax and basically say, okay, yeah, basically say, okay, we can either try and make a tiny fraction back by spending millions into the alliance, or you can say we get more cities, and from there we'll be able to do more raids, fixed tiering, and stuff like that. At the end of your war, a report should be made on your not progress, but basically okay, here's how well you did in the war, or here's how bad you did. Here are the areas that need to be fixed, and so on and so forth. If you have a protectorate, the protectorate can help you do it for you. It's a something report, not a progress report. It's a, come on guys, help me out here. Performance, thank you, a performance report. So, yeah, okay. The the thing is, nobody in a micro is getting zeroed on infra. Nobody. Let's go back for a second. We have people at City 5. No, it doesn't. We have people at City 5 with 2K infra, okay? If all of a sudden that 2K infra gets reduced to, let's say, 1750, right? Can somebody do the math on how much going from 1750 to 2K infra is? Because I think it's around 8 mil. 5.3. Okay, so 5.3 in 5 cities is 25 mil. Instead, you can take that 25 mil and buy 4 cities with that. So that's the thing. You're throwing out kind of blanket statements here, which is it's never bad to rebuild. But there are cases which is bad to rebuild. There is always cases. To say it's never bad to rebuild is a false statement. And yeah, absolutely. You should really never have a City 5 at 2K infra to begin with. But guess what? They're out there. They're not in shitty micros. They're in TKR, in the Immortals. They are everywhere. So that's the thing. Guess what? As a micro, as an alliance starting out for the first time, if you're building to 1500 infra, which guess what? Yeah, at City 7, you should do that. You shouldn't go higher than 1500 until like City 10, and then City 10, some people start going to 1750 and others go to 2K. Okay. So it's so hard to tell a micro, here's your rebuild plan. It's so hard to do that. We have people that aren't able to take the necessary steps to even get a protectorate to inform them of, hey, you guys need to have an able rebuild plan ready, and here are the amounts for every city, is ridiculous. And while it is a lot easier to monitor and enforce infra levels with 20 members than 100, you have to remember, at 20 members, I'm only going to have 4 government. At 100 plus members, I'm going to have 15, 20 gov. Yeah, so the thing to do is make your plan early. Buy food, because you're going to get ready to sell that during the global and make a profit regardless. Make a plan of airstrikes, blockades, sit. After the war, make sure your voice gets heard, either through a protectorate or a sphere, or make sure that you have some sort of tie before the upcoming global, because guess what? Chances are you're going to be brought in just because of how bad Rose is doing with keeping their protectorate within their own tier. This is going to be it's not that hard to create a plan. Absolutely. For somebody that's been playing the game for 30 days though, how do they go about making a plan? What do they plan? Putmir, you also said that at City 5 and City 7 you don't have 2K infra, but guess what? There are City 5s with 2K infra. You don't run your own AA at that stage. Well, guess what? There are people that run alliances at 30 days. We actually have somebody that made an alliance 4 minutes into their existence. 4 minutes. It is the fastest that I've ever seen an alliance get made. It's incredible. PNW Darwinism is fantastic. However, and here's the thing, with PNW Darwinism, it's survival of the fittest. But if we're not doing our due diligence in at least trying to teach these new players how to play the game, then we're not going to have new players playing the game. It is a mistake. I'm not saying that they're right in making an alliance 10 days into their existence. The issue is, okay, we see that you've made an alliance. While it's going to work out for you in the first week or two, we'd really like you to take the time and learn the game in an alliance that knows what it's doing. Black Skies has gone from 50 members to 77 in about 5 days. We've gained 50% in 5 days, and it's simply from, hey, we see that you're a new nation and you're making some mistakes. We'd really like you to come into the alliance so that we can teach you properly about how to raid, run your nation, do FA, and trying to give those people the foundations in which they can say, all right, I'm not making an alliance at 30 days old. I'm now 150, 200 days old. I'm going to make a small alliance, have about 6 people in it. In that case, that's an alliance where you would be able to throw a prop to. Because guess what? You've had that experience of, now unless that member was really like unruly or something, you've had the experience of that member being in your alliance for, 6 months, and you've been able to say, okay, it's very good that you're understanding the basics and you want to try this out. We'd be happy to give you a protectorate on the conditions of X, Y, and Z. Now, don't make them like goal conditions. Make them like under the conditions that you don't start any unneeded wars. You don't do anything that's, overly crazy. You don't start making a whole bunch of treaties. It's good to give people a crash course as a protectorate. It's not fair, however, to say, okay, we just see a micro struggling and we're going to choke them out because, haha, guess what? You did it wrong. Because now that person's not going to be interested in the game anymore. And that could be a person that, a year and a half later could still be in your alliance and is a C25. Don't choke out people that are not familiar with the game. The more, fucking, I need to go on a side tangent here. Okay. I go to make a report against some Maltese, and I see a report against a nation because the nation's bio is too long. And this is Saxon that's doing it. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, why are you reporting this? It's as simple as, and I think I said it here. I'm gonna go to this real quick because I mean it's absurd. Forum. Yeah, okay. I said some of the information here can be displayed on their Nation fact book. Instead of reporting it, reaching out to the person to teach them would be a better solution. Guys, holy shit. It really hurts me that newer players that are unfamiliar with the game are being ostracized because they don't know how the game works. It's much easier to say, okay, listen, hello, you are having issues with the game, obviously. I'd like to show you how to do that. Because even that initial reach out might be a new person for your alliance. So it's not even like a, you know, oh, we have to really like, you know, stoop down to a micro level and, play mom and dad to these kids. No, no. I'm saying at least be good stewards of the game. If the only thing that we do is look at new members, new alliances and just shit on them, we are not creating an environment that people are going to want to join. The fact that Knights Templar is throwing what is essentially transphobic and racist slurs at new members coming to the game is absurd. The fact that we have Oceania that is purposefully attacking new alliances and attacking new members because guess what? You guys are shitters doesn't help. The fact that we have alliances in game that are going out of their way to hit new players to drive them out because of a so-called micro dominance is absurd. It's not, far be it from me to say it's not hard for people to be at least nice to each other. But on the bare minimum, we should have the decency to say, listen, instead of poking fun at all of these players and all of these issues, let's take the time and help them fix it. Because if all we're going to do is complain about micros and their issues when we ourselves can actually go out and do something about it, we are no better than those people that have issues. Because our issue is we have our heads so far up our asses because we haven't been to that point and we have forgotten our roots of, hey, I was there, I made those same mistakes. Don't antagonize new players. This show wasn't even supposed to be about that. 100 taxes are trash. If you're running 100 taxes, you need to be rolled or removed from office. If you are using players as tax farms, guess what? You need to be removed. Don't look at a player as a number, look at the player as a person. We have new micros being made every day, and people are shitting on them constantly. 100 is a really efficient controlled econ method, but 100 is how you lose members. 100 might be the best economic method in the game, but 100 and 100 is the worst player retention method in the game. All right. I'm getting way off topic here. So, ugh. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns so far? And does anyone have anything that they want to specifically talk about? Nothing? What is the best news network? The best news network is the news network that gives unbiased opinion. The best news network is those that report on the issues at hand without all of a sudden double backing on itself. Royal Orbis News will never be the best news network because they will often post stuff that targets their staff, but then Krampus will remove information that he doesn't want. And he actually has the very famous Thought Police post. So if you have news and all of a sudden you have a owner of a news network that is censoring what you can post, then you have a whole thing that's just, there's no point to it. And it's not just when something turns out to be fake. He's done that a couple of times, both to memes posted by Boz when he was still around. He's posted that a couple of times to Vero's channel. You can't use it to censor your news network or your shows. Meme News Network, let's talk about them real quick. They're never going to be the best news network ever, because I don't know about the database. I don't, you know, they only report on stuff that they believe can get views. They only report on stuff that they feel is, I don't know, click worthy, I guess. OWN is never going to be the best news network just because their staff is more motivated by payment than by actual news. They're too busy having squabbles over whose story it is, and plagiarizing from other networks. I actually had to end up leaving staff there and then the channel altogether because they didn't have a singular creative cell in their entire staff team. The only stuff that they were getting that was anything remotely close to their own stuff was stuff that I was double posting on both Microminute and OWN. Everything else was either taken from Ron, was taken from Microminute or was taken from Pirate Island Times. Banks are never affected by wars. Banks make the only people that make cash during wars are banks. What lower alliances 40 plus do you think will be hit hardest in the global? Okay, well we got a couple things here. To have the best news network, um, I would say the best news network have the following attributes. They report openly and fairly. They don't have an agenda with their paper. They give their show creators full range and full access. Um, they allow public discussion to flow freely as long as it doesn't go too much into racism, sexism, anything like that. Um, and then the fifth one is you are not using your newspaper as a business, but you're truly using your newspaper as an information outlet. I do not use Microminute to make money. Microminute makes nothing. There's, there is a slight advertisement that you can make. It's 2 mil, but realistically, nobody uses it, and they only use the micro advertisements channel, which is 100% free. Um, I got to go back to this question. What lower alliances 40 plus do you think will be hit the hardest in the global? I can actually go and pick out the top alliances that are going to get hit the hardest. Omar Empire. Omar Empire is going to get absolutely hammered if Golden Dawn, Rohirrim get involved. Amar's just kind of free floating there. They are kind of on last legs right now. Um, Atlantean Council. They're going to get smacked super hard if Hedge gets involved. And actually, they're not part of that anymore. They're Aurora, so that's going to be Oasis. So if Oasis gets involved, they're going to get smacked. Golden Dawn is going to get hit probably just because it's Golden Dawn. Sorry, it is what it is. I think Iron's going to remain pretty much unscathed. If Rosecam gets involved, I think European Union's going to get by pretty unscathed. Um, Mandalore might get hit hard. Dragon Confederacy might get hit hard. Here we go. Compass on the Compass. If Compass gets pulled into the global by way of Soldiers of Liberty, which is Oasis, they're going to lose a shit ton. They only run 10, 15 taxes right now. So that's going to be devastating for them. Mandalore, TGUR, and Compass merge. I can see a Mandalore and Compass merge. I don't know why TGUR would merge. TGUR is kind of in this weird spot. Let me actually pull them up again. Yeah, number 58, there's no reason for them to merge. They've stagnated, to be sure, but TGUR needs to focus on recruitment and bringing in those C3s, 4s, and 5s into the higher tiers, and they'll be fine. Mandalore has not grown at all. Compass has not grown at all. Let me actually go to Mandalore real quick. So Compass hasn't grown. Okay, so where they are today, they were at on July 5th, 2020. I'm sorry, May 3rd, 2020, they were also in the same position. So that's essentially saying, okay, we've had this alliance for over a year now, and we've essentially gone an entire year without growth. And we're just right back to where we were a year ago, which is tragic. Looking at Mandalore, they are in a lower position of where they were September 27th, 2020. So they've essentially gone, what is that, 7 months without increased growth. Now, Mandalore could kind of fix themselves here and say, okay, we have a city 3, 4, and 2 city 5, so we can kind of pull them up a bit. But a merge with TGUR, that's not good for TGUR. They're basically taking on 2 dead alliances and trying to say, okay, do stuff. And the thing is, they're not going to do stuff. Otherwise, they would have been doing it already, and they would have been growing. Nobody wants to join Compass. Nobody wants to join Mandalore, and it's just, that's the way it is. If Black Skies can increase their score by 25,000 in 5 days, and these alliances can't recruit a single person in over 2 months, that's on them. That's on their IA, that's on their FA, that's 100%. They do not want to grow. Absolutely not. I basically said, all right, boys, we're going to recruit for 10 days, 5 days, 27 people. It's not hard. You just have to do the work. They don't want to do the work. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Mandalore and Compass doesn't want to work to grow, so they're going to die out at some point. I'll do 2 more question, comments, or concerns. Thoughts on TOS increasing staffing? I don't care. That's about it. I'm not going to give false commentary on something that I don't have any A, knowledge of, or B, have the ability to provide insightful opinion on. TOS increasing staffing, I mean, How do you feel about Rose increasing their low gov? I they're what does that mean? Rose has more people, great. TOS increasing staffing. They need more help to do what they're doing. There's nothing really there that's anything groundbreaking. Like, you know, TOS is going to have to spend a little bit more on paying people because they increase staffing. What's happening with Rose in this GW? I don't know. Rosecam is a very interesting sphere, and I think that Rose is going to come out of this global with a new build plan for getting members from City 3 to City 10. You can quote me on that because they're gonna look at their protectorate getting smashed and they're gonna say, shit, we didn't do actually anything about this because we couldn't protect them. So they're gonna change that. And they might be half decent and say, okay, we're going to do stagnated growth, so we're going to do C5 to C6, or I'm sorry, C3 to C6, and then C6 to C10. We could. That's very much what we could see. Anything else? I'll do one more question, comment, or concern. Do micros really matter in the global wars, or are they pawns for the big boys? Let me rephrase that question for you, just so I can answer it thoroughly. Do micros impact the sway of the global war, or are they just side pieces of the macro alliances? Now, I can answer that question. The first part is no, micros will not impact the sway of the war during the global. Um, the global is usually already preset, which is kind of a weird way of putting it. There's usually going to be a clear winner once all of the combatants have been declared. Um, so a few micros getting in on it isn't really anything crazy, and it definitely isn't enough to sway it. Um, Now, are they side pieces for the macros? Is something interesting because I do know, especially when BK was running BK's children, um, they would use the protectorates mm, as kind of like a borderline defense for their low tier, which is kind of scummy. But if you can say that, okay, the protectorate during the global is not really a protectorate, but an extension of the alliance, um, then from there, see, BSK, that's technically incorrect. Technically, that's incorrect. Um, so the whole thing of, okay, we have all of these low tiered players. We are going to um, keep ourselves kind of with this extension of, all right, protectorates from city like 10 to 6 are considered part of our alliance. From there, you can say, all right, that's fair. Now we can try and use military coordination to talk with our protectorate and give them. Does the Hold on, I'll get to that in a second. And we can say, all right, with that extension, we can work with them militarily, get good counters going, and protect our low tier people as well as our protectorate at the same time. Now, BSK, you technically joined the global against, I mean, really, you joined the global for Quack, which was weird. Does the NAP end with war? So, no, that's the thing. Alex is interested in getting out some new updates to the game, and because of that, he's kind of at like a general blanket of, hey, what's the deal with the NAP? Are we looking about getting into a global right away? And I can't tell you the answer to that because it's not something I can really go into detail on. But I will say the end of this NAP, for I can say for a fact, at the end of this NAP, a global war isn't immediately going to start. It might be another week, it might be 2 weeks, it could be a month, but at the end of this NAP, there is not going to be an immediate global. And BSK, Black Skies entered the global war against Quack. We entered the global war against Quack, helping your protectors. And we were fighting Eclipse, and we were fighting um, the Enterprise. So once we got dropped, and that's the thing. Once Black Skies got dropped, nobody from Hedge, nobody from Swamp attacked us. It was literally just a, hey, remember that alliance that got pulled into the global and is helping our protector right now? We should really declare war on them. That's, you know, that's you fighting Black Skies in favor of Quack. You weren't in Quack's sphere, but you were fighting Black Skies in favor of Quack. It, Considering that we had Eclipse basically zeroed, I would say that we were doing pretty well. We were net positive 1.7 billion damage during the global. Now, how common do you think it is, both in micros and in macros, the expectation that a war will start immediately, not just as a worst case to prepare for, but as a true expectation? It's pretty common in the lower tiers, especially those that don't really know anything about how the globals work. There's a lot of alliances that'll switch their recruitment messages to join us. There's an ongoing global, and we want you to be protected. A lower uh, a lower person um, that doesn't know, or a new player is going to assume that a global just means, okay, that's it. War starts. I gotta go someplace to hide. Macros, on the other hand, it's quite the opposite. I think after your first global, you get into the mindset of, okay, we have this NAP, it's going to end, but war isn't going to start immediately. And so from there, we're able to say, okay, so this is what we end up doing, and um, you're able to move on from there. Um, so it's really the micros that need the mindset of, okay, this is what we need to do in order to get ready for a global. Is it something that we need to worry about? Is it something that we have to actively like find aggression in? And no, you don't. So everyone expects it, so everyone is tense and it actually happens. Not necessarily. Um, there have been some close calls where like a raid gone wrong, essentially. Um, and then all of a sudden it gets three slotted. Some low MA gov says, hey, we're getting blitzed, and it kind of spirals out from there. But that's usually been able to kind of come back to a centered ground. Any other questions or comments? KT is never going to disband. KT is going to be around for years or until Alex shuts down the game. All right. Well, thank you guys coming out for listening. Um, I don't know if we're going to keep using the stage. I might just prefer doing a voice chat, um, just because we can listen to the music beforehand. If you guys did like this and you're not bothered by the mass pings or anything, we can keep using this setup. Um, I'm going to go ahead and put a vote up as to what we want to talk about next. Um, but realistically, there's nothing newsworthy right now in the microspheres. It's really just everyone trying to get ready for the upcoming global. I'm not interested in talking about the global next week as well, because it's going to essentially be the same thing as this time. Um, so I will go ahead and toss up just a couple ideas, and if nothing really sticks out, then we'll cancel next week as well, and then we'll go into the week after, in which we will definitely have stuff to talk about because the global will have started, and we'll look at people that got hit and whatnot. So thank you guys so much for coming out and listening. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you guys potentially next week. So take care.